What's going on, everybody? My name is Michael Weer, and today we are talking about Prey, the Predator prequel movie that released earlier this month on Hulu. Now, I tried to do a review for this movie as soon as I watched it and get it out to you guys because, hey, that's when it's hot. That's when you're going to get the most views. As it stands, now this probably will get like 10 views on my channel because I'm releasing this so late. But the thing was, I watched the movie and I was like, I want to watch that again before I do a review. And then a week went by, and then 2 weeks, and then the third week, and then earlier this week, I got a cold, and so I'm just getting out of that now, and I was like, you know what, it's time. So I watched Prey again, I really enjoyed it, and now I'm doing the review for Prey, the Predator prequel movie on Hulu. Let's do the review.
Whatever did this, I can kill it.
So Prey is set 300 years ago. It's set way before the events of the original Predator movie, which I love with Arnold. It is in my top 10 movies of all time. So when I heard they were doing a Predator prequel movie after getting The Predator a couple years ago, which was just god-awful, I was really worried. I was like, all right, but I don't know how this is going to be. And then that first trailer dropped, and I did a review for that on my channel. You can check it out if you want. And I was blown away. I was like, yes, give me this and don't give me any more. And I refused to watch any other marketing material for this movie, which was easy since it was dropping on Hulu. I could just skip the ad if an ad came up for it. I wanted to go into this thing as blind as possible. And that was the best way to experience this movie because there were some things that I'm sure the previews gave away that I'm glad I experienced for the first time when watching this movie entirely. But it's set 300 years ago, so it has no connection to any of the other films, which I appreciate. And it's also set within the Comanche Nation. So I was like, oh, so like they're not gonna have guns. They're not gonna have technology. This is gonna be an interesting fight. And it was, for many reasons that we will get into. But we'll continue on with the synopsis for now, and that is a girl named Naru. I think I'm pronouncing her name right. But you've got Naru, who is part of the Comanche tribe, and she's a girl within this tribe. And, you know, the way things worked back then, women were the cooks, women were the gatherers, women, they did all the things women needed to do back then while the men went out and hunted. And she's like, you know what? I don't want any part of that. I want to go out and I want to be a hunter. I want to be one of the elite hunters within this group. And so she's trying to prove herself throughout this movie, and most of the people just give her shit. Even her, I think it's her mom, give her shit about it. She's like, listen, you know, the woman's place, you know, it's really over here while the men are out doing the hunting. But she's like, no, I want to prove myself. And so throughout this movie, she's trying to prove herself and ends up proving herself versus the Predator, which is no easy feat. And that's basically the setup I can give you for this movie without spoiling things. Again, I try to keep these reviews with movies that are out now pretty spoiler free. So I will say the movie's on Hulu. I'm going to try to keep it spoiler-free. That's the setup. You've got this girl who's trying to prove herself. You've got the Predator looking for the alpha, the Predator on the planet that he can take down and say the Predators are number one because that's like their whole goal. And again, you've got the rest of the tribe. Oh, and some French trappers that come in later. So that's your setup for this movie. And go. Like, what do you think's going to happen? That this Predator and this girl are eventually going to face off one-on-one. It's just how it's going to work. So that's all the setup that I can give you without spoiling things. So I want to get into my likes and dislikes, but first I want to talk about the controversial topic of the language used within this film, because I don't care. I don't care. I don't like reading my movies. And I know, as you know, people are going to be upset with that. I can't believe you didn't want them to speak the old Comanche language throughout this movie and then read the movie. Like, who cares, dude? Seriously, who cares? Honestly, who cares? I don't want to sit there and read my movie. I get irritated when I accidentally select a theater showing where it's got the subtitles because I'm dumb and I went too early in the day. I get so irritated when that happens because I just want to watch a movie and understand the words that are being said. I don't want to read my movies, which has stunted my viewing on several movies that are subtitles only. Like, I don't like subtitles. So I'm going to get that out right away, that I was happy that the Comanche Nation people spoke English because I want to understand what's going on in the movie without having to read the movie. Like, that's just how I feel. Okay, with that out of the way, to say that's not a controversy for me. You're not going to see that in my likes and dislikes. Like, oh, I wish they had spoken in the original. Who cares? Not me. And if you care, that's great. Good for you. You can watch it with subtitles. But I didn't. So I'm going to move on. But with all that said, let me get into my likes and my dislikes because I do love a lot of things about this movie. And the first thing is I love how this movie looks. The cinematography in this movie is great. The open lands in this movie. I just love the scenes in this movie. Like the first half of this movie is a lot of world building that they need to do. I have some gripes about that. We'll get into a little bit, but I do like how the movie looks. And then toward the end of this movie, when it comes down to the final showdown, you got the Predator, you got this girl, it's snowing, and that just looks so beautiful. It really does. They do a great job with the cinematography in this movie, and I wouldn't be doing this movie justice in my review if I didn't talk about how beautiful the scenes were in this movie. The next thing I like about this movie is kind of two things wrapped in one, so I'll talk about them both at the same time. The first thing I'll say is that I love the gear that the Predator uses in this movie. So just like this movie is set 300 years in the past, so is the Predator's gear. Like he's got several things that are clearly not as up to date as they were in the Predator movie, and that makes sense because he's progressing his arsenal as well. So when he gets to Earth, instead of like the arm cannon that automatically shoots laser beams, and it's fantastic, he has a cannon, but it shoots arrows, and he has to go collect those arrows and shoot them out again. Like, that's pretty cool. I like that his technology's kind of scaled down a bit to take on, because I mean, if the Predator showed up 300 years ago with the tech he has in the original Predator movie against Arnold, I'm sorry, it's over for the Comanche Nation. It's over for them. But he still has the same weaknesses. Like, he still can't see through mud. He has a hard time seeing things around heat vision. Like, I like that. I like that the Predators still haven't figured that out in other movies. Like, for whatever reason, they can't. Like, they're like, why do we keep losing on Earth? Oh, mud and heat. Okay, well, we need to up our gear. I'm waiting for like a Predator movie where the Predators have figured that out. Maybe that'll be the next one they do, but whatever, this movie's set in the past, so of course he hasn't figured it out yet, so I like that about it as well. But that tech comes into play the most in a scene I wanted to get into, and that's a French trapper scene. Now, I'll try not to spoil too much, but you've got these French trappers who are over by the Comanche Nation who are there, but they try to take on the Predator, and in that scene, you really get to see his gear come out. I mean, he's got gadgets and gizmos, and the stuff he uses to take these guys on is great. Again, because this movie's set in the past, during that scene, you've got these trappers who get the rifles and they shoot, and then they've got to try to reload their rifles because they're one-shot rifles, and the Predator just looks at them and takes them all out. It's just a great scene. So this movie has some great levels of violence in it, that scene in particular, and then the ending scene are fantastic. My final like for this movie goes into the end scene, and I'll try not to spoil anything here, but I like how when the Predator comes to Earth, he might take on a poisonous snake, he might take on a wolf, he may take on a 1,000-pound grizzly, but when he gets up against a smart human, in this case, this girl from this tribe, man, it's a level playing field, and I love how they end this movie. So I'm not going to spoil how they end it if you haven't seen it yet and you want to watch it, but if you've seen it, you know how it ends, and I think it's done really well. I also love some throwbacks in this movie that I'll get into right now. The first one is that 7.15 gun from the end of Predator 2. Now, I'm not a big fan of Predator 2 with Danny Glover. I'm just not. And at the end, they throw him a gun, like as a trophy, because he outlasted the Predator. And it says 1715 on it, and then they were originally going to like do a 1715 pirate movie that they never did. But I like how they use that gun. That gun comes into play in this movie. So I'd like to see more in this universe to kind of see how they got that gun. That's pretty neat. And the other throwback, there were more, but the other one that really stuck out to me is the moment where Naru and another Comanche are tied to this tree, and they're talking about the Predator, and they're like, I don't think there's a way to kill it. And the guy leans up and he goes, if it bleeds, we can kill it. And I was like, oh, I just love that line. I love that line so much. So those were cool throwbacks within this movie. But those are the things I liked. Let's get into my dislikes. So my first dislike for this movie has to do with the beginning of the movie. And while I said it's got a lot of beautiful shots, and it does, it's very slow. Like, they're trying to character build this Naru girl. They're also trying to character build the Comanche tribe around her. And they're showing the Predator kind of figure out our planet. Now, any of the moments with the Predator are really cool because he's using his cloaking device, and like the animals he's taking on can sense him, whereas humans can't really sense the Predator, but animals have like, you know, that heightened sense. And so they're able to kind of see him and he takes them out. It's pretty cool, but it is very slow. Like, the last act and a half of this movie are very fast paced, very intense, like you're edge of your seat, at least in my experience. But with the first act of this movie, it's very slow, very world building, and they take their time, which on the first viewing, it didn't really bother me, but on a repeat viewing, I was like, all right, I need to get through this. So it might be something that if you see this movie once, it might not affect you, but if you see this movie multiple times, you might be like, all right, let's get to the good stuff. Like, We get it. Come on, she wants to be a hunter. They don't want her to be a hunter. She has to prove herself. We get it. Like, that's how it felt. And the other problem I have is a very slight gripe, but I am a little irritated that this girl who was trying to be a hunter and trying to prove herself was having a hard time hitting rabbits in the field. Like, she was really good throwing at a target that didn't move. But when it came to a rabbit in a field, there's even a whole scene where she throws her axe and it misses. And she pulls it back and she throws the axe again and it misses another rabbit. And then she throws it and misses another rabbit. Like, she's not like a marksman. But by the end of this movie, there's dudes full rushing her and she's just knocking them out like it's the movie Ninja Assassin. It's a cool scene and it works for me and I like the action within it. But when you step back and think about it, you're like, wait a minute, like a scene ago, you were having a whole problem hitting anything. So she just kind of comes into her own, which, fine, but it's a little gripe I have. So it's fine, but there's no development throughout the movie. Like, first act, she's not good at hitting moving targets, but by the last act, she's taken on the Predator, who's a very moving target. So like I said, like, I get that maybe she's coming into her own, but they didn't develop it enough. For a movie that spent a lot of time developing in the first act, it didn't develop enough for me to be like, oh yeah, I mean, it's a cool scene, but how did she get that good that fast? I don't know. But gripe, like I said, not a total dislike, but a gripe. Overall, guys, I'll say this is a solid action film, and it is a solid entry into the Predator franchise. I love Predator 1. I love the movie Predators. I'm not a big fan of Predator 2. I'm not a fan of The Predator. The AVP movies kind of happened, and they are what they are. But I love the character of the Predator, so any Predator I can get, I will watch. And I think this Prey movie fits right in line with the two that I really enjoy. So I will watch this again. I hope there's a 4K version that hits Steelbook at some point for this movie, because I would love to put this on the shelf with the rest of mine. But guys, those are my thoughts, and that's my review on Prey. And if you like this review, make sure you hit the like button. If you want to share this review with your friends, make sure that by hitting the share button. If you've seen Prey, the Predator prequel movie that was released on Hulu earlier this month, well, put your thoughts and your comments in the comment section down below and let me know your thoughts about Prey. And finally, guys, if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do that by hitting the subscribe button, because I have a lot of content on my channel that you'll probably enjoy if you enjoyed this review. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Alright guys, I just got done editing the Prey movie review, and I'm glad it went to streaming. It might have been more fun in the theater, but I was thinking about what's coming up on streaming. Like, I just did Day Shift a couple days ago. I know the Hellraiser movie comes out in October, and then a week later, Halloween Ends now goes straight to streaming. So I'll probably review both of those straight from my couch. It's just easier. I'm tired. And there's really no reason for me to be tired. It's the middle of the day. I need a shave.
Michael Myers is alive.